Okay, Boston, Arizona. So now we're in the internment camp with Aki again. Aki left the game of jacks she was playing with her friends when she saw her mother returning from the post office with 3 envelopes. 3 letters, Aki cried. 3? They had never received that many letters in one day before. Aki's mother opened the first envelope that had been postmarked in Denver. Postmarked means that's where it came from, like that's where it was sent from. It's from Seiko. It looks like it has something in it, Aki said, hopping up and down. When Aki wrote to Seiko, she always ended with the plea, please send candy and gum. And Seiko often enclosed treats in his letters. Just a minute, said her mother with a laugh. Let me read the letter first. She opened the envelope and removed a sheet of paper. Aki was sure there was a treat inside the bulging envelope. Her mother shared the highlights. Seiko bought a truck, a 1938 pickup, light blue. He doesn't drive much because gas is so expensive. They've had a lot of rain. Anything for me? Aki demanded. Hold on, Aki's mother said, turning over the last page. Oh, yes. Your brother does have something for you. Aki's mother reached into the envelope and handed her daughter a pack of Wrigley's Spearmint chewing gum and a Hershey bar. Thank you, Aki squealed with delight. She unwrapped a stick of gum, carefully folding the silver paper and slipping it back into the pack. In the camp, she had learned to waste nothing. She chewed the gum several times and then took a deep breath, allowing the spearmint flavor to create a cool, tingly sensation inside her mouth. Aki's mother placed Seiko's letter back in the envelope. Next, she opened the envelope, stamped with Prisoner of War. This one's from your father. But Aki had known right away. She always cringed when she read those words on Pop's letters. Why is he a prisoner of war? She asked herself time after time. He is not the enemy. So remember, a prisoner of war is somebody who gets usually taken or captured during war. But these people were just regular citizens living in California, and they were all taken as prisoners of war during World War II. English, but sometimes he included a Japanese word or phrase when he didn't know how to express a thought any other way. Military censors cut the Japanese sections right out of the paper, just in case they included military secrets. At times, her father's letters had so many holes in them that they reminded Aki of the paper snowflakes she had once made in art class in Westminster School. Aki's father always wrote her name several times so that she could spot it even in a shred of a letter. Even if nothing else in the letter makes sense, her name did. Her father was thinking about her. Aki's mother held out the final envelope. This one is addressed to you. Me? Aki asked, puzzled. But immediately she recognized the return address, her own home in Westminster, California. It must be from Sylvia. Aki tore open the envelope and pulled out the letter. 3 pages filled front and back. Sylvia's stationery. I promised I would write you, so here I go. Sylvia wrote about her teacher, who was so mean she made the kids sit in the corner facing the wall if they got caught speaking Spanish at school. She wrote about her new kitten, Ginger, who had earned her name both because she was the color of fresh ginger and because she moved as gracefully as Ginger Rogers, the movie star and dancer. And she wrote about her father, who was going to court so that Sylvia and her brothers would be able to go to Westminster School. My dad really, really wants us to get a good education, Sylvia wrote. Sometimes it's hard, but I'm really proud of him. On the last page, just after her signature, Sylvia had taped a short article from the newspaper, Westminster Man Sues School System. The article even mentioned Sylvia and her brothers by name. Wow, Aki thought, running her finger over Sylvia's name in the article. Someone famous is living in our house, in my bedroom. Aki kept all her letters in an old cigar box that a neighbor had given her. She saved everything that people sent her, every card, every envelope, every candy wrapper. Her mother had locked away the old photographs they'd brought with them. These scraps were all she had to help her hold on to a normal life, and most of all to her father. Sometimes before she fell asleep at night, Aki looked through the box and tried to remember her father's face. But more and more he seemed a ghost to her now. She hadn't seen him in more than 2 years. Aki was so different from the little girl he'd seen in the morning he disappeared from her life. She now stood 4 inches taller, and her hair hung 8 inches longer than it had then. If we were to meet, would we recognize one another? Aki remembered her father's smile and the gap between his 2 front teeth. She thought about how hard he worked, always the first out in the fields before dawn, and always the last to come inside at night. She missed her father most on the camp's movie nights when families sat together. Aki always sat next to her mother. But when the lights dimmed in the auditorium, she scanned the men in the crowd, searching for the one who might be her father, just in case he was in the dark looking for her too. One Friday afternoon, she returned to the barracks after school, planning to tell her mother that she wanted to skip the movie. She just couldn't stand the thought of her father not being there yet another night. As she approached the door, Aki heard voices inside. She didn't expect her mother to be home from her job in the camp kitchen until later. Who's inside? Aki found a man speaking quietly with her mother. It took a moment for her to see that the man sitting in a chair a few feet away from her was her father. Pop? Her father stood as Aki rushed to him, and he folded her in his arms. Aki clung to her father so tightly that her arms began to tremble. I love you, Pop, she said when she found words. I love you too, he said. Aki had always known that her father loved her. He had shown her 1,000,000 times in the ways that he took care of her. But that was the first time Aki could remember him saying it in words. Please don't leave me, she said. Please don't leave me ever again. Aki felt her father's embrace tighten. In the safety of his arms, anything, even an end to life in Poston, seemed possible. The war is winding down, her mother said. We will be going home soon. Home? It was almost too much to believe. Aki felt like she was on the brink of getting back what had been lost to her. Her father, her home, her family, her whole life. And that's the end of the chapter. A whole bunch happened in that chapter. The first thing I thought of as I was reading was when they were talking about the gum. My guess is they don't have access to things like gum and candy. Otherwise, why would Aki be asking her brother to send it to her? But then when they were talking about the letters getting cut up and all of the Japanese words getting cut out of the letters, I thought it was interesting that Aki has the Japanese taken out of her letters, and Sylvia is getting punished, or not her, but people in her class are getting punished when they speak in Spanish. And all of that reminds me of when we read the ledger book of Thomas Blue Eagle, because the same thing happened to them. And those of you who are reading Code Talkers, you know that the same thing is happening with the Navajo. So those were the two big things I thought of. But I guess my question at the end of this is, it's fantastic that Pop is back, but I wonder what happens to Sylvia and her family if Aki and her family get to go back home now. How will that change things? Okay, go ahead after you're done listening to this chapter. This was chapter 10. So record your responses in the form and make sure you check chapter 10.